Hello, Facebook and YouTube family. How you been doing this weekend? The beginning of this weekend. We had bad weather here today and really bad news today, and that's what this subject is about. Here in Georgia, they passed today. Brian Kemp passed the SB, I think it's 202 bill. He signed it, and really, it's another name for Jim Crow, back in the Jim Crow era, because uh, this bill came about. I'm going to show you a video of someone who could explain it better why it came about. But in essence, it came about to suppress our voting rights. As you know, here in Georgia, this is the first time, well, not the first time, but the first time in a long time that Georgia turned the blue. And that wasn't expected, especially from conservatives and mainly Trump. It was not suspected. So, in order to change that, they had to throw a monkey wrench in it. And that's what this bill is about. Now, we're gonna discuss it today, and I want to hear your views with it too. Thanks for coming to chat with Cece. And I want you to put your comments down. We're going to talk about it. If you got something to say, write it in YouTube. I'm going to display it on the screen and we'll talk about it. But let's go back to the beginning. This bill. Now, do you wonder why? I remember a lot of people, even I know, that they used to say, well, voting don't count. A lot of Black people, people of color, voting don't count. And everybody has said that for so long and became despondent that really a lot of people, especially young people, they stopped voting in elections because they felt like the voting didn't count. Complained. But nothing was said about that. Why? Because it was going in the way that they wanted it to go in. And when I say they, it's mostly conservatives, white rage, the white supremacists, people that, Trumpists. Trump, I don't know what he called his fan club. It seemed more like it's getting to be more like a cult, but that's another conversation for another day. But, since this year in 2020, the vote didn't go their way. All of a sudden now it's a need for a change. When Black people been saying all the time it was a need for a change, it wasn't a need for a change. But since everybody got fed up and went out there in droves, and when I say droves, they went out there in droves, and then it was a perfect storm too because the corona came about. So, the asking of lengthening the voting, the days that we get to vote, and expanding it to the weekends, and because people had corona and people didn't want to stand in those long lines, crowded all together. So it was like a perfect storm to get them to at least relax the voting laws, which really, why is the voting laws on Tuesday anyway? Why? Because Tuesday, long time ago, and it's irrelevant today because we're not a bunch of farmers and croppers, but long time ago, Tuesday was the best day for farmers because most people was farmers back then. And, they go to town to sell their goods and stuff. So Tuesday was a good day for them. And, they picked November 4th. So that's why it became on Tuesday, on November 4th. So why do we have to keep that? I mean, this is 2021. Hardly nobody's farming. I mean, why do we have to keep that? Well, we don't. But because people want to suppress voting, they want to make it as narrow as possible to give people a chance to vote. Now, I'm going to go over what's in this bill, but before I go over it, I just want to give you a little background of what this bill is about and why it came about. And it's really nothing but voter suppression. I mean, it's not nothing new. They've been doing it for years, years and years. You know, in 1865, the first time they gave us the right to vote, you know, after the you know, when everything was recovering, and they thought they was gonna give people the right to vote. Really, that was only because back then a lot of black people was Republicans, and the Democrats thought that, you know, if we had more representation in the South, then they could put their people in office. So it was trickery way back then. But then when people started voting, then it was like, we don't want you to vote then. So they started the Jim Crow laws and started to do everything in their power to stop it. So I'm gonna show you a film. And like I said, you know, if you got a comment, please put it on. I'll see it and I'll say it. And in the meantime, please like, share, and please subscribe to my channel, because you know I always could use your statistics. But I'm gonna show you a little film. I may skip around a little, but it's a very good film. Talks about why we're at the point that we're at today. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to play it.
Suppression never went away. It evolved.
They say to me, well, we thought we had done away with poll taxes. We thought we had done away with intimidation. We have all kind of obstacles being placed in our way. It's the same game with a different name.
To understand how we got here, historian Carol Anderson says we first need to understand white rage.
White rage is not how we often think about it. We often think of rage as being this kind of violent backlash or uproar. We know that there's something wrong with the violence that takes down a child. We know that something is wrong with the violence that six dogs on nonviolent protesters in Birmingham. We know something's wrong with that. But the kinds of quiet policies that led to that moment, it takes us a long time to recognize that the policies themselves are predicated on white supremacy and exclusion.
Anderson says the trigger for white rage is Black advancement. For each advancement Blacks made for voting rights, there was an opposite reaction of white rage. That was the case in Mississippi after the passage of the 15th Amendment, which gave the right to vote to freed Black men.
Because Mississippi said, how do we write a law saying we don't want Black people to vote without writing a law that says explicitly we don't want Black people to vote? Because the 15th Amendment said you can't write a law that's that explicit. What Mississippi did was Mississippi said, we will take the societally imposed conditions on African Americans and use those conditions as the access to the ballot box.
Mississippi passed a new state constitution that required every citizen to pay a poll tax, pass a literacy test, and in some cases, meet a property requirement. At the time, Black people were less than 30 years out of slavery when they earned no money and were blocked from reading. The Mississippi Plan of 1890 was applied equally to Black and white voters, but white men could get around the barriers with so-called grandfather clauses. If they or a relative had voted before the Civil War ended, they could skip the poll tax or literacy test.
Okay, so don't that sound familiar? It sounds very familiar. You see, what they do is they take people's, you know, they know people of color, not only Blacks. You got Latinos out here, you have Asians out here, you have many people out here that work 9 to 5 jobs, or sometimes work overtime. Especially people of color. We most of the time, we're working overtime, and they don't get let off from their jobs. It's not a law to let people go vote. So a lot of times you can't get off your job. So they know that. Who's the majority of people that can't get off? Who's the majority of people that maybe have transportation problems that can't get to the polls? And we all know that during election time, the majority of people that is stuck in long lines is Black people. You have old people that really can't get around and everything. So what they do is they use all of that. They use all of that to put laws in place because they know that's a hindrance to voting. Okay, I'm gonna start it back up, but I just wanted to emphasize that, and like I say, as you see it, if you got a comment, please put it on it so we could talk about it. I'm gonna skip around a little bit and show you that it's nothing new. It's really nothing new what we've been going through. And this was back in the 1800s. Now we're gonna get to some of the, I guess, the 60s, or even, when the 15th Amendment came around, just to show you that this is a repeat of history. It's nothing new. It's been voter suppression for I don't know how long. We just hoping that in this day that we're here, we could do something about it.
Were shot, lynched, or violently harassed by vigilantes and police. And even though the 19th Amendment passed in 1920 to give women the right to vote, by 1940, only 3% of eligible African Americans in the South were registered to vote.
The civil rights movement is one of those moments in American history where the U.S. feels a depth of pride because it overcame something as villainous as Jim Crow. And it took a lot of bodies. It took this kind of moral power of the nonviolent movement. It took grassroots organization and mobilizing. It took Martin Luther King, this hard-earned legislative victory of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
The Voting Rights Act was hailed as a defining civil rights legislation of its time. It was especially important because it had an enforcement mechanism the 15th Amendment lacked. Under Sections 4 and 5 of the VRA, states with a history of discriminatory voting laws now needed federal approval or pre-clearance to change their election laws. This gave the Justice Department and federal courts in D.C. power to block discriminatory election laws. Its impact was profound. In Mississippi alone, voter turnout among Blacks increased from 6% in 1964 to 59% in 1969. By then, President Lyndon B. Johnson had established anti-poverty programs to curb inequality. He created Medicare and Medicaid for the elderly and poor, and enacted education and housing reforms. By 1966, 85% of whites said the pace of civil rights progress was too fast, and by the 1968 presidential election, white resentment had coalesced into the Southern strategy.
Can you believe that? They are complaining about we're progressing too fast. I mean, it's blatant racism right there in your face. We're progressing too fast. See, they just want to keep you back. They want to hold you back. That's the reason why they didn't want education, and they used education to stop the voting, because if you couldn't read, you couldn't vote.
Southern strategy, bringing Democrats and disaffected whites into the Republican Party.
The Southern strategy bolstered racist policies and practices without using racist language. Anderson says this applied to voter suppression as well.
Voter suppression is really based on the Mississippi Plan of 1890, where you can't say we don't want Black people to vote. But that's the intent. That's been a key element in the policy of.
Don't that remind you of when the conservative party says use code words like make America great again, because they know they can't come out and say we want white power or we want white supremacy, or look, the other minorities is getting too much, we can't let them take over the country, so they use code words.
Now the Republican Party, I would say another key element in policy was uttered by Paul Weyrich.
They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
To understand the language of voter fraud and voter suppression that's going on now, that's the framework. That our leverage, our power increases when the voting populace is constrained.
When President Ford signed the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act in 19...
Okay, I'm gonna skip some of this and go to tell you when really. Oh, you have to see John Lewis though. But as you can see, it's just a repeat. It's a repeat. Whenever they feel like they're losing power, then they got to put a monkey wrench into it.
In 1975, the scope of the bill was expanded to protect Latino, Native American, and Asian voters by requiring bilingual elections. Congress reauthorized the Voting Rights Act in 1982, 1992, and 2006. The 2006 renewal included 15,000 pages of evidence of ongoing discrimination in voting. Congress said there was progress in eliminating first-generation barriers to voting, but that second-generation barriers had persisted.
Yes, we have made some progress. We have come a distance. We're no longer met with bullwhips, fire hoses, and violence when we attempt to register and vote. But the sad fact is, the sad truth is, discrimination still exists.
Now, he said we're not met with dogs and water hoses, but that's not entirely true. As we've seen today, which I'll show you a clip too, we see a House of Representative, a Georgia House of Representative lady. All she wanted to do was go in there and look Brian Kemp in the face while he signs this Jim Crow bill. And what did she get met with? Arrest. Meanwhile, let me take you back to when the Capitol got stormed. You didn't see any arrests happen that day. But I'm just saying.
Second-generation barriers were laws that diluted the political power of minorities at the polls and included things like racial gerrymandering, poll closures, voter ID laws, and cutting down early voting and same-day voter registration. On a bipartisan basis, the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized for 25 years. 2 years later, in 2008, America elected its first Black president.
This when
The
all that
election
stuff
of
started
Barack
coming back.
Obama is one in the latest string of the advancement of Black folk that leads to this incredible white rage.
In 2010, conservative Tea Party candidates swelled within the Republican Party. From 2011 to 2015, 395 new voting restrictions were introduced in 49 states.
And I want to stop right there to tell you, yes, Barack Obama was the start of when, all this, we have to take back the vote began. And if you remember, this is when Trump, all of a sudden, he started questioning Barack Obama's birthplace. Like I said, this is the key, and really, he's the ring figure that's pulling the strings. This is when he started everything with questioning his birthright, and he did that the whole presidency to get them started. Okay, we have some questions or some comments. Yeah, Jim Crow has been here. It's just, it's the same thing, and we see it. We see it. And about the attack with water holes, what did we see? Where Black Lives Matter went out there and protested, a peaceful protest, they got hit by bullets from our own military. So, like I said, it's been like this. This is nothing new. So here we fast forward, like I say, during Barack Obama's presidency, the Tea Party started, and they started all this. We got to take this back, because just like what they said before, the Black people are progressing too far. We got to stop this. We got to stop it. It's just like in any case, we could live equally until you get too far. Once you get too far, then we got to put you back in your place. And that's pretty much what happened today. I mean, we had Brian Kemp signed this bill and would not even allow a Georgia House of Representative person to come look at him sign it. And all she wanted to do was look him in the face. And also, this happened to be the anniversary, the 54th anniversary of Martin Luther King's speech when he was talking in Selma. So I don't know if that's a coincidence, or I don't know if he meant to do it on this day. And Brian Kemp was the main one who, when John Lewis died, was talking about, he was he was all for peace and equality. Well, if John Lewis is probably turning over his grave right now and wish he could get back down here to kick some ass, but that's what he did. I think I got a picture of the people of him signing the bill. And let me tell you what this bill includes. This bill is it is Jim Crow at its best. I'm gonna tell you some of the things that this bill includes. First of all, we know we had a fair election. It really wasn't no reason for this bill. But, they want to cry it's an unfair election. Even they know it wasn't an unfair election, but we know who pulling the strings behind here. We know who lost. And remember, Trump, before he left, he threatened them that if they didn't come on his side, they wasn't going to see another they wasn't going to win another Republican race. Now, I don't know what that means or what he got on them. Just this weekend, they had 3, I think, senators or somebody that's running for office, governors, I don't know, but 3 of them went down to Florida, as they say, kiss the ring of Trump, just to get his approval to run and to get his backing. And he's a lost president. He just lost. But that's how much they into him. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen my last broadcast that was saying it's getting cult-like, you really need to see it, because it's really something crazy. I never seen a past president that is still so much involved and has so much power of control with these people. And remember, it was all this talk about, he threatened the elections, and he called in telling him to hide votes. We're going to get them. You don't hear that now. All you hear is the signing of this bill. Anyway, let me tell you about the new changes that's coming about. It don't have anything to do with a fair election. Okay, from now on, you know how machines break down, people have to wait for hours to vote. Well, different organizations such as Fair Fight, different organizations will come, volunteers will come pass out food and water to our elderly, our sickly, anybody standing in line that, sometime, if you haven't ate, because like I say, you have to, that's another thing. Okay. You have to be in line now at 5 o'clock. The poll closes at 6. You got to be in line at 5 o'clock, or you can't vote. And no more extending hours for voting. No more extending hours. If you ain't in that line, you just ain't in that line. But anyway, you can't even pass out chips or water or anything. You can't even give an old person a chair if they standing in line and they look like they're about to fall. Now, what that have to do with a fair election? Okay, then also you can't vote no more on weekends. You know, like I said, because of the pandemic, they had opened up a big spread to stretch out the vote. They want all that closed up. They really only want one day, 6 to 6. And like I said, you have to be in line at 5 o'clock. All this absentee voting, you can only vote absentee if you're 65 or disabled. If you're not 65 or disabled, you can't absentee vote. That means you got to go up there, and it's no more checking signature on the absentee voting. If they need to check, you have to manually go up there. Now this is absentee vote. That means that you for whatever reason you couldn't make it up to the polls. You couldn't stand in a long line. You couldn't do all of that. So that's why you absentee voting. You just putting it in no more ballot boxes. They cutting down the ballot boxes. Okay, I forgot to tell you about that. Okay, so anyway, you have to be 65 and older. If you are out of town, now who's going to do this? But if you are out of town, you have to get a witness to sign to verify you was out of town, and you have to take it to the not your polling place, but I guess the Capitol or wherever they do voting. You got to take it up there, and you have to have a witness. Now really, why you got to do all of that? What they have to do with a fair vote? Let me see what else is in it. It's a 100-page document. I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's a 100-page document, but the things they have in there really do not have anything to do with an unfair election. You know, it's just a bunch of sore losers. Now, what I think need to be done is, you know, everybody voted for Biden. Not everybody, but you know, majority. He got enough to get in. What he needs to do, this is what I think he needs to do, and you tell me what you think he needs to do. I think he needs to federalize. Why isn't voting federalized? We all supposed to vote. Why can't we be uniform in our voting? Why can't the federal government? Oh, and let me tell you, all these voting rights, do you realize these are amendments that have to be renewed? It's not in the Constitution for us to have a right to vote in the first place. They didn't include us on purpose. You know, they just said, oh, let's amend this because like I said on my previous statement, at that time they needed us to vote. You know, so we got a statement that President. Yeah, he said he's going to take congressional action. I'm waiting to see. Right now, I'm at the stage that really, until I see some action, I really don't get happy about it. But he said he's going to, and I sure hope he's going to, because it really don't make sense why each state is making their own laws about voting when we all supposed to vote. Everybody's supposed to vote, and everybody should have the right to vote. So why some states is different than other states? That don't make sense to me. It really don't. Okay, I'm going to show you the representative getting arrested. And I heard on news today, Brian Kemp said something about somebody got kicked. I don't know. I didn't see it. If somebody got kicked, she must have kicked when she was arrested going to the jailhouse, because I didn't see a kick, and I'm going to let you see it. And now remind you, think about what happened at the in Washington when you look at this video right here. And you see a big difference. Okay. This is what went down today in Georgia.
The governor is signing a bill that affects all Georgians. Why is he doing it in private, and why is he trying to keep elected officials who are representing us out of the process?
Exactly. Are you serious?
No, you are not representing.
No. She's not under arrest.
For what? Under arrest for what? For trying to see something that our governor is doing? Our governor is signing a bill that affects all Georgians, and you're going to arrest an elected representative. Why are you arresting her? Tell us now. Why are you arresting her? Sign it. Give me a reason why you are arresting her. Give me a reason why you are arresting her. She is an elected representative. Why are you arresting her?
There is no reason for me to be arrested. I am a legislator. Do not touch me. Why are there 3 officers touching me? I am not doing anything.
It almost makes you want to cry just looking at that. I mean, it really do. Now, this lady is getting pulled out. All she did was knock on the door because she had every right. Just like, just like when the president, he gets elected and he uses his power with the pen. Everybody, it's like an honor to go see him sign the new legislation. So she had every right to go. I mean, she works. It's just like you at a job. And you knock on your boss's door to see, to talk with him about something or to see something. And you get fired. That's what it's like. She works there. And so, like I say, she didn't do anything. Three officers took her, and it looks like she kind of dropped down, and they literally dragged her, by her shoulders going out of there. And this is another thing. If that was a white lady, they wouldn't have treated her like that. They wouldn't have. Black women get no respect, and they just treat us any kind of way. Now, I think I had a picture of him signing that bill. That's what I want to show you, because if you haven't seen it on the news, he was surrounded by a bunch of white men that, let me see, can I pull it up for you? He was surrounded by a bunch of white men, similar to how, I guess you could say, when Trump was in office, that's who he was surrounded by. Why couldn't nobody of color was there? Why couldn't they be there? Let's see, can I pull this up? It was a shame, really was. Okay, here we go. Let me share this with you. This is who got the privilege of looking at him sign the bill, and he should, and she wanted to see his face, because she knew what he was doing. That's it right here. 6 white men. That's the only people that was able to see him sign the bill. So it was done like it always done, in secrecy too, because they made comments of what they wanted to make comments was that we wasn't privileged to. But this lady works there. Now, when they said cite the code, what they was arrested for, they didn't know. They couldn't cite no code because there wasn't no code. Now that she got arrested, they done made up some codes. I think I heard on the news what she was arrested for, but it wasn't for knocking on the door. It said you had, 5 officers, considering everybody in the Capitol. I agree. We need to step up our game, and it really hurts me, just like when we had the marches of George Floyd, and our people, and I'm gonna say all the people of color, because all the people of color, this should be important to everybody. Just like in that film, the Native Americans, the Latinos, everybody, the Asians, they talking about stop Asian hate. It's been black people hate. It's been everybody's hate all the time. This ain't just stop like it's just now starting. You need to stop. This been all the time, you know. I just forgot my thought. I mean, you know, you just can't believe that you're looking at this in the year 2021. But I know what I was going to say. Back when they was doing the marches, you know, because what they do, and this is what Trump is really good with doing, taking a narrative and put it in your head, just like with the Colin Kaepernick and taking a knee. You know, he flips it on, oh, you're not taking a knee for injustice. You're taking a knee because you're not celebrating our military. You're not celebrating our country. Then everybody jump on board. Yeah, it's about that. It's about that. You know, Black Lives Matter. We all know Black Lives Matter. We care about all lives. You know, we care about the agents that just got gunned down and everything. But at that time, all we seeing is Black lives on the ground. So we're talking about Black Lives Matter. We're not talking about all lives. But see, they flip it around. And the sad thing is, you have some people, some minorities that fall for it, you know? Stuff they march. Oh, well, they don't need to be in that street. They don't need to be tearing stuff up. They don't need to be. I'm not saying that. I'm not advocating violence before anybody say something. But you're going to have to get their attention, because sitting up here saying kumbaya and holding hands and all of that is not getting you nowhere. You see, that was a peaceful knock on the door. They arrested her for knocking on the door. But now remember, up in Washington, they had hacksaws, they had machetes, machine guns, knives, even pipe bombs. Not one person got arrested on that day. They got arrested that night when they start picking people up, but because the governor had implemented a curfew and they was out, so that's why they got arrested. But they didn't get arrested for marching on Washington. But yet this lady went to the door and just knocked. And Brian Kemp he knew she was out there. What kind of governor we have that you can't even let a person in because you know you're doing the wrong thing? But even if you have a strong conviction that you're going to do it, she has every right to come look at you just like those other 6 white men. Why can't she come in? So you know what we need to do when we go vote. And you know, with me, I don't care if they make vote in 1 hour on Tuesday. I'm going to be in that line in that 1 hour. But all of us should feel like that. And you know, all those states that, all these other states, they coming for you all too. They in Arizona didn't change their laws. Texas is in the middle of trying to change their laws. I mean, all these states are doing it. The Republican states, all these states are doing it. So don't think just you looking at Georgia and what's going on in Georgia, because all of these Republican governors, if you read, because I researched the internet today, and I had a list of them, but I know it was I think it was Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Arizona. I think Arizona have already changed theirs, but it's coming down the line. So, you know, don't think it's just Georgia. It's just the start. So Biden have to do something. He have to do something. Or next election, we need to vote his ass out too. It's going to be one or the other. But it has to be something. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be a flat federal law. And there's no reason why our voting rights is an amendment in the first place. Why it ain't part of the Constitution. You know, every year, every couple of years, excuse me, it has to be renewed just to give us the right. Like we not people too. So, well, anyway, that's all I got to say about it. You know, it's a fight out here. And it's a very important fight, not only for our children that's coming behind us, but, you know, we have to keep the pressure on. Talk to your kids, talk to all these millennials, get everybody riled up, because we have to fight, and we need to put pressure on Washington because they need to do something about it. Even Biden talked about it's a disgrace, but what you're going to do about it? Now we know our past president that was in there, if he didn't like something, he did it with a pin change or whatever. He made it happen. So we need to get in there and make this happen because it's just a shame. But anyway, thank you for coming to chat with me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's just a hard subject to talk about because, you know, to know that this is 2021 and we still fighting something that our parents and our parents before us and their parents before them, and you know, we are people too. Why we have to fight it all. But anyway, thank you for talking with me tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I thought it was very informational. That's why I showed it to you. And just stay woke. That's all I can tell you. Stay woke, and you know, don't just look at it. Just be a part. Be a part of the movement. Talk to you later. Until next Friday. Goodbye.